Everyone, they were in executive session, so we're probably running a couple minutes behind, I'm guessing. They should be here soon. Andy, no problems?
No problem, John.
Okay, good.
Thanks. Okay, bye. That was easy. I got in lickety split. It just wasn't meant to be last time, John.
It's crazy what happens when technology works.
You didn't ever figure out what was the problem last time, Andy? It was just a glitch.
No, for some reason I was locked out of the meeting and it wasn't immediately apparent. And so what I was trying to do on my end is I was at home for that particular meeting and I tried several different devices. I tried, I was on my laptop, the city laptop, and then I went to the PC at our house, and then excuse me, the Mac. My wife would be upset. The Mac, and then I tried my phone, and nothing seemed to work. And I really wanted to get on, not just by phone. So, anyhow, by the time I got on, it was like 20 after or quarter after or something. But John and I couldn't figure out initially, or John, not me, but John could figure out, and eventually determined I'd somehow had gotten locked out, and it wasn't readily apparent at first. So, but anyhow. No problem this time. No problem virtually all the times we've been doing this. It's been fantastic. So thank you, John, again. It's been almost flawless, this whole process. We've learned a lot as we've gone along. But
True.
Yeah, technology and I are not the total enemies we used to be.
I tell you.
Slightly better.
It's kind of remarkable, though. Think about it, how life was a year ago. And here we are, who would have thought it would have been this long that we'd be doing this? And we've gotten pretty darn good at it, I think. And we've been able to keep things functioning pretty well.
Lots of things will stay changed.
Yeah, did you notice Andy said we? Yeah, how about John Kane?
There you go. All right. I was trying to give everybody credit, for everybody learning and
There we go.
adapting.
Wait till you guys see version 2.0. It's going to be fancy. So
Oh,
it's going to be great.
All right, let's get started with our work session. It's about 6 minutes after.
Mayor, you just went muted for some reason. Not sure why. There you go.
Okay. So we have a few things that we want to walk through tonight on our work session. We've got about 40 minutes to do this. I don't think a couple of them is going to take too long. So let's start out real quick with Lorraine. Lorraine, you want to walk us through our 2020 financial report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Let me start the video here. There we go. Thank you. And I'll share my screen with you and see if everyone can see that. Has everyone got a visual now?
It looks like it's trying to start, but it hadn't come up yet, Lorraine.
There you go.
Okay. We'll go through these financials for December, and I always call the December financials preliminary because until the audit's over, they won't be finalized, but should give you a pretty good idea of where things are. Certain things will continue to come in during January and February, bills that might have been for work performed in the prior year that will get charged back, some revenues that were received by the state for December that will receive in January or even February. So things will move along and change a little bit, but these should give you a good idea. Again, you've got over $6.5 million in cash. I'm looking at the highlighted line items at year end. The general funds portion of that is $1.4 million. And so we'll go to the first page of the general fund where that amount appears as the first item of the general fund assets. And your fund balance as of the beginning of the year was 2.1 million. So the revenue over expenditures or under in this case of 377,000 is subtracted from that to give you a total fund equity at the end of 2020 on these preliminary statements of 1.7 million fund balance in the general fund. We'll move on to the income statement, which shows the revenues and expenditures. And you've got property taxes, most of which were received. There's a little bit lower percentage in collections than probably most years, probably due to the lockdown. Sales and use taxes came in higher on the main sales tax line there. Use tax for which is from building and permits, was slightly under the budgeted amount. And your franchise fees are pretty close to what was anticipated. Those are generally affected more by weather than anything else. Your building permits came in much stronger than you had forecast in the budget. So you got 102,000 in building permit revenue. And your other taxes are essentially the way you had expected. Although the highway users taxes weren't received on time, they will be coming in. Fines were down, as we've seen every month, and your leases and rent revenue is a little lower than forecast. Some of that may be paid late and bring those up as we get amounts in January or February for the prior year. So your total fund revenue, though, the bottom line there, was at 103% of the amount that had been budgeted. So that's very good, especially for what could have been a very down year. Then I'm going to just scroll forward to through the other departments to get a total of the general fund departments for the year. Your total expenditures were below budget, thanks in large part to the efforts of your staff to keep expenses down. And so you came in under budget. Still, you see the total expenditures. Let me get the caption showing on that column. Where it says period actual or year-to-date, actually year-to-date actual, the expenditures were more than your revenues by that 377,000, but not that different from what you had forecast. Skip over to the more active funds. Here's your ramp fund. Its fund balance at year end is 790, and sorry, at the beginning of the year was 793,000. You're drawing that down as planned. It eventually will go to zero, but it's at year end was at 727,000.
Lorraine, I might just clarify one item there. We do plan to maintain a fund balance in the ramp fund and have that build up for periodic maintenance and then eventually some capital repairs like overlay and things like that. So the council did determine when that ramp fund project was done that there would be a fund balance that would be maintained there for future repair and capital.
Yes, you've mentioned that to me before. I apologize for misstating that.
No problem.
Thank you. So here's the total expenditures for 2020 as of what had been received in the invoices through December were expenses of about 67,000, which was much lower than had been anticipated. The budget had been 10 times that. You obviously delayed some projects. Next is the improvement fund. It has, 4.6 million in assets. Some of that are these notes, the notes receivable from the water and wastewater funds. So the actual cash in that fund at year end was about $1.8 million. The taxes came in fairly strong on the sales taxes. There was a discrepancy between how it was budgeted and how the taxes came in. So you'll see that there's 93% of your regular sales taxes came in and about 78% of the use taxes from building permits. And then your expenditures were about 26% of what had been budgeted. Again, some delays in projects that had been put there, maybe as placeholders. So your revenues over expenditures for the year was $166,000. Here's your conservation trust fund, the lottery monies. This shows you had a beginning fund balance of almost 60,000. You've added to that to the tune of 26.7 during 2020 to end the year around 86,000. You know, your 1% street tax fund started with 2.4 million. You've been using some monies there, almost $1 million spent this year. So you're drawing that fund balance down a bit during 2020. Here's your revenues coming in. The main ones were very close to 100%. You did not end up issuing those bonds. And then your expenditures were about 60% of what had been budgeted. So the year-to-date actual on the bottom line there, net revenue over expenditures, was your expenditures exceeded revenues by about 967,000. Water fund, we look at that fund equity, which is a lot of it is in the ground. Here's your revenues. They came in right near your budgeted amount. Good forecasting there, 101% of what the forecast was. And expenditures were less than budgeted, primarily due to capital, I believe. Let's look here. Yes. Distribution expenses were a little under budget. You've got some amounts under budget throughout this. And you didn't have to spend any of this contingency. So that's a large part of the being under budget. Wastewater fund, again, it has 18 million in total assets. And a lot of that is, some of it is the cash from your loan proceeds that haven't yet been spent down. Some of it's cash on hand, and a lot of it is infrastructure. Total equity of almost 12 million in wastewater. Here's your charges for services. Again, your revenue forecast was pretty close to what you actually received. You got 97.1% of what had been forecast. And your expenditures, by and large, part of the reason they were under in water and here in wastewater is that you had budgeted for depreciation expense, and that's a non-cash item, so we don't have to post that. And then on these financials for money in, money out, and then your total expenses were about half of what had been budgeted. Again, you didn't have to spend the contingency amounts either. So that's about 750,000 at least right there between that and the depreciation that didn't have to be spent. Stormwater started the year with 127,000, and you have done some projects here to draw that down. So no new revenues, but here's your expenses largely for curb and gutter, bringing your total expenditures to 102,000 and drawing down that beginning fund balance. And then we get into these CIP funds, and as we talked about during the budget process, these actually are combined in your audited financial statements into each fund, water and wastewater, and they have some additional equity that will be added to those other funds. We can track these amounts separately as you like with these funds, but make it so that the fund balances are a little bit easier to decipher. Total expenditures this year were 20,000 as opposed to the 257,000 that had been budgeted. Some of that was reserve contingency. And a lot of it was CIP projects. And then the same or similar idea here with the wastewater, where it will have a fund equity that combines with the, what do we see, several million in the other listing for the wastewater fund. So that's going to net to a good positive number. You did get a fair amount in loans and grants this year from the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority. You did do a fair amount of spending of resources to build the projects from those loans. And your total expenditures were slightly over budget here, but again, they'll be netted against the rest of the wastewater fund for reporting purposes in your audit. Those are the highlights at December 31st, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, any questions, council?
Is there any red flags that you see?
Not at this point. We'll keep a watch on any other big bills that come in and see how these change. But at this point, it's kind of what we were expecting.
Okay, is that it? All right, thank you, Lorraine. Great job. Like I said, every time that I get to walk through this with you, I get the aha. Now that I understand that. So I really appreciate it very much, the way that you do this and walk us through.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes,
I appreciate that.
thank you, Lorraine.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
All right,
Night.
good night. Okay, we're going to move down to our next item, discussion of ordinance regarding commencement of elected officials' terms of office. The reason that we wanted to bring this forward is I know that our last election with new city council members coming on, we got into a position that we were waiting on the certification of the election. So it could have happened. We've seen council put in before the first of the year, after the first of the year. I felt it was necessary, and speaking with Carmen and Andy, that we needed to really have a date certain that we know that when the election happens, by this time, everything will be in place. The election will be certified, and we can go through with the commencement and trading and handing the responsibility off to our new council members and new mayor and other elected officials. Carmen put a draft in our packet. I'm hoping everybody got a chance to read through it. A couple of things that I noticed is about like the budget, which, you know, current council works on all year long, and it gets down to the December date that we have to adopt the budget. And as I expressed last time, I felt it was important that the council folks that were working on the budget were the ones to adopt it. And with the timing on this, that would allow that too. As you know, that even though a budget is adopted, at any time during the year, it can be modified. It's a process, it can happen, not so desirable, but it can be done. So any future council members that think that, you know, we didn't get to be a part of this, and we think it should have been done like this, or we should have put this in here, they would have that opportunity to go back if they would like to and relook at it and make some modifications to it. So I just kind of want to open it up. I explained kind of why I had Carmen draw up something for us to talk about, and for us to just weigh out pros and cons or thoughts or ideas. So I'm just going to open up the floor for discussion.
So Mayor, as you're probably painfully aware, last year there were some real conspiracy theories flying around as to why new council members were sworn in where they were or when they were. So I think that Carmen did a good job presenting why this needs to happen and new members sworn in at a later date. And I just think this makes things much clearer. And I wish we had this last year. I agree.
Now the way that Carmen called out the dates is a little weird. with the first Monday after the second Tuesday after the third Thursday of the 6th month, right?
I disavow and take no credit for that, Mayor. That funky language comes directly from a state statute. So I know it's funny. I looked at a few years, and the language that the statute again expressly authorizes you to adopt would happen to, in our case, result in our first January meeting. That's usually the first Monday following the first Tuesday. And even if it weren't, we meet on Mondays anyway. I'll just, while I'm not on mute right now, I'll share just a thought, and that is, it is not very common in my experience with statutory cities and towns to have something like this in place. And I think that's unfortunate because it always puts those statutory cities and towns in the sort of waiting game that we see post-election, while new folks don't know when the results will be official and certified. The outgoing folks don't know how much they get to do before they leave. And it seems to be sort of up in the air every election cycle. So this is a little certainty that you can offer not only yourselves, but incoming groups. If you choose to, I will close by saying this is purely a policy choice and is up to you.
Okay. Any questions for Carmen?
Not here. It seems like a very logical move, actually.
As being part of the circumstances took part, when Jimmy and I started, and Chuck, I think it's excellent. I think it's very defined and eliminate a lot of unnecessary conversation from people.
Thanks for that, Art. I appreciate you saying that, because I know it was, during that time, there was a lot of things going on in this community. And we just want to make sure we have something on the books, that a policy that it happens every year until another council changes it. It does happen exactly when you're going to take that the gavel. You know exactly when you're going to get in that seat, and that date will be there, and there will be no question about it.
And this will keep Putin from interfering with our elections.
Say it again. What you say, Art?
I said this will keep Putin from interfering with our elections.
There you go. I like it.
Oh, all right.
That alone makes it pretty compelling.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey. All right. Any other questions on this item? All right. Very good. Next item on our work session is the parking plan update. We've been working on this update for quite some time. We just kind of want to make sure that John is getting all the input from council as we move this thing forward. And are there some other thoughts that we need to include in this document moving forward? So with that, John, I'm just going to open it up for you to talk about the things you have listed in there and some thoughts and ideas you have.
Mayor and Council, we've been working on this parking plan for quite a while, as you know. What I've tried to do with my staff report is give you a list of the changes that we've made. Carmen also highlighted them in the ordinance itself so you can see them. What we really tried to do is clean it up. There's a lot of obsolete things in there. For instance, there's handicap spaces at the Digger Field that are no longer necessary because the use there is gone. And so what we did is we tried to go through each street, make sure that how the streets were being used and parking was being used is actually reflected in this document. We also made some changes that just kind of clean it up and make sure that people aren't breaking the law for things like if your car breaks down in the parking lot and you'd like have a flat tire or something like that, that you can actually change that tire. We worked on making sure that residents that live downtown are currently able to get a parking permit to park in the parking lots overnight, but it wasn't reflected in this plan. So we tried to change that. And we changed some of the descriptions of the parking lots. Those are really the big changes that we've made to this point. There was another section that was worked on that we talked about related to residential permit parking. That is an issue that's a little bit larger, and we still need to work on that a little bit. So there may be another revised version of this parking plan at some point in the future, if and when a finalized version of that program is completed. For now, it doesn't really affect anything else in the plan. So we thought the best course of action would be to add that later when we do have an answer. The thing in this parking plan that I think is worthy of discussion the most, you'll see that there is a proposed ordinance in the staff report to change Wall Street between 23rd and 19th into a one-way street, a one-way westbound street. This is because in previous versions of this plan, Wall Street had a limitation during inclement weather for parking only on the north side of the street, just due to the geography of that street. It's narrow and steep. What we've proposed is turning it into a one-way westbound street with parking always on the north side. The reason for that is because when it snows, it's hard, first of all, to define what inclement weather is. And so this would make it so it's a permit condition so everybody knows where and how to park. That has been something that has been discussed, that there may be, different alternatives to how we have arranged that. So that's something for you to discuss. We did recommend that you approve that ordinance. So that would go through the normal ordinance process with the first and second reading. And then this is a parking plan a parking plan is passed by resolution. So that would be the other recommendation that we have for this plan.
Has that been discussed with the residents of that area?
Chief Malenka suggested that we do a little flyer to the residents, and I have written it, and I will have it to him in the morning. So the second ordinance or reading of the ordinance is where the discussion happens of that ordinance. And so we would want to make sure that all of the residents on that stretch would be involved in this process and have an opportunity to provide the city with feedback about the idea. So that is something that will be happening in the near future. It's actually written. I've just got to get it to Chief.
And you say,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, you say that this was discussed and determined by the parking committee. Is who plus the chief was involved in this decision process?
This is a staff process. We've been actually talking about updating the parking plan for over a year. In October, this version of the plan really got moving forward. And there was a lot of discussion about all of the different kind of legal aspects of what needs to be in a parking plan starting at that time. We took all the staff comments that we received and we put them into this plan, and they're reflected here. That doesn't necessarily mean there's no changes that need to be made, and that certainly could still happen, but that's how we arrived at this version of the document.
I was specifically talking about Wall Street, though. Was that determined as part of this group, right?
That was a recommendation from the chief, but it's also something that is just, it's the first step of what we need to talk about. We need to make sure that it's safe for people parking there, and this is one way to accomplish that. There is a kind of a natural condition on the street where people use the street in that way, most of the residents that are living in that area. It may put a limitation on them, though, that we'll find out about after the flyer and more people are providing information and so forth. But that's kind of what.
Chief, would you like to weigh in on this?
Yeah, just so we heard several different things on this. The suggestion that it be made an eastbound only street has problems. First and foremost, it would mean everybody would have to park their left wheel to the curb, driver door too many walls. So in essence, for them to get out of their cars, they'd have to park farther away from the wall. So if one-way direction, it makes sense that we go westbound so they can park right wheel to the curb, which for the most part, if you drive there, predominantly that's how people park because they're acclimated to going westbound already. So there's concerns. I mean, by making it one way, you won't have to worry about head-on-head traffic. And the hazard there is anybody who has to back up going westbound, they're very vulnerable to driving into somebody's living room. That's just off the curb line there or over an embankment. So, I suggested that we allow the residents to weigh in, and whatever the residents decide on that street, then they're going to have to live with their decision. But I do think that street was never designed for two-way traffic in the modern day. I did say that I did just see a message from Kate Collier that she wanted to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I think you're gonna get a lot of input from the residents and they'll kind of let it be known what kind of idea, if they think that's a good idea or not.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I mean, from a public safety standpoint, that's well and good. They just have to live with their decision, and we can back away from that. There's preference and there's common sense and good judgment. So, sometimes they overlap.
Right.
So,
You
Kate,
guys
are you there?
I am. Do you guys mind if I make a comment?
I would rather wait until all residents have the flyer. Go ahead, Kate. Go ahead and make a comment.
Well, I mean, because I know you guys are going to discuss this, let me just throw it out really quick. I think there's two things. There's one is my house is directly affected by this. I will no longer be able to drive my car up the road. That just will not happen. So that's just me. And then John and Brenda next to us, Brenda's handicapped. When they have to park facing east, it'll directly affect them. I'm not speaking for them. I'm just mentioning those two things. The other thing that I think is really imperative, I talked to Chief about this many, many moons ago. And what I said was, I was still on council at the time, is talk about it becoming one way after the road was redone. And the reason for that is I think there can be a lot of implementation into how that road is developed that will make it easily be a one-way road. And right now, what you're going to do in front of Michelle and Alex's house and all the potholes going all the way east is you're just going to put way more pressure on a road that has an F rating right now. So people that don't have to come up that part of the road will be using it right now. Our road is truly, it's a terrible road. When it was rated back 6 years ago, it was a D-. So I'm positively sure it did not get better.
So I guess I'm lost of what your recommendation is, Kate. I know that you've been talking about this for quite some time.
So here's my recommendation, and it would be in the form of a variance that and this is the beautiful thing about this. It's not every day that we have to worry about it, because honestly, it doesn't snow that much as it did when we first moved here. The only problem is, and Chuck knows because he's in the same neighborhood, he's driven on that road, is when it does snow and the snow doesn't melt because we have two houses that cause shadow, it's an ice slick. And so if I was able to back my car down, which is what I do now, and I don't get a ticket for that, by the way, I've been doing it for 20 years. That's really all I'm asking for. I mean, we've been doing it for 20 years. So, and Doug can drive his car, we can drive the truck, but my car specifically will not get up that hill. That's why I asked for that variance many years ago before I even got on council, guys, because that goes back 16 years that I asked for the ability to park the wrong way on that road.
And if I could just add, there's another fly in the ointment. There actually is some off-street parking on Wall Street. And I think it's Ruben's truck. He's got a one space where he can shoehorn pickup truck if he's heading eastbound. And Kate Collier does have some off-street parking in her driveway if she's heading westbound. And there may be another person or two who's going to run into a similar situation. I think Kate alluded to someone who's handicapped, because of how narrow the street is, it may just make it a lot easier for folks at certain addresses to go one direction or the other. So I do believe there probably is going to be a lot of comment about this from the neighbors once those flyers go out.
So this is my position, and it's always been my position, is whatever the community decides, we can live with, but the consequences are with the community. You can't have it both ways. You can't complain about the street but want to do something of that nature. I mean, to be honest with you, it's no skin off the police department's teeth. Like I said, other than hopefully we'll never have to pull somebody's car out of somebody's living room or have to respond from Virginia because somebody went off one of the walls there. I see, Kate's point in that, there have been practices that have been going on for many years. The population density there is unlikely to increase, and the carrying capacity for cars is finite, so we won't see an increase there. So looking at it from the safety standpoint, yes, safety-wise, one-way street's the best way to go. But then again, it's like, what do the people on the street want? I won't lie to you, we can't get a fire engine up there as it is. Certainly not one of the larger trucks. So regardless of what we do before the street is redesigned, emergency access has always been limited.
Okay, so what I think we ought to do with this is get letters out and some feedback from the residents on that street to see what their desires and how they would deal with it if we did change it to one direction westbound. And maybe I'm not, Kate, with this variance, are you suggesting that at certain times of the year that we allow something different, like parking on the street and things like that?
No, not that extreme. And actually, what Chuck said is true. I think there's going to be people that are going to be limited during certain types of weather, but also just certain types of vehicles are going to have difficulty. Just to be very fair, I've actually reached out to several neighbors already, and some of them are excited about a one-way while also understanding our predicament. So, I mean, everybody kind of was like, hey, we all get it. I mean, but I think my suggestion would be is that I do not mind the one way. I do believe that council really needs to look at this road and look at the impact of extra cars and these very damaged areas and what that's going to look like, and then decide, okay, do we want to do this now or do we want to do this later? And then for those days where we get a foot of snow and it's an ice sheet, I'm just saying you're going to have some cars that are just simply going to have to either back down or be allowed to park the wrong way. And that's your decision to make as a council. I will obviously do the best thing I can in the neighborhood, but I cannot promise you that I will not be driving backwards down that road.
Okay.
I'm very good at it, by the way.
All right, John's going to get the flyers out to the road. Ron, you have something to add?
Yeah, Mayor, should I add alternatives to that flyer, or should I just talk about this one-way alternative? And Kate, I have two questions, I guess. Does it matter if it was one-way eastbound or westbound? And is there a way we could equally divide it where we could say in inclement weather, like X number of houses go left and X number of houses go right? Or is there?
I don't know, that I would think that's extremely difficult. But what was your first question, John? I'm sorry.
Does it matter if it's eastbound or westbound? Does that help at all?
I thought about this a lot, and I see Chris smiling. I've actually talked to Chris about this a lot. What I thought is, at one point, if we did do southbound going east, south side going eastbound, then what you have is all along Wall Street, you have people walking out blindly into the actual road. And one of the problems that most people have up here is that people speed, which is really crazy because it is like a street in Beirut up here, but they can really haul ass coming up that hill. And if I'm going to only use my house as an example, but if I walk out from where my stone wall is, I would walk directly into traffic. So yes, I really have thought about this a lot. It's not, and I don't think there's any solution that is going to be remotely 100%. I mean, if we get to 75, I'll be pleased.
Okay. All right, John, let's get that letter out. Let's see if we get response back from them, and then we'll bring this up in another work session.
Hey guys,
Okay.
Do you mind? I don't need to be at the next meeting if that was enough comment for you.
Yep, that's great. Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for listening, guys.
All right. Any other comments on this item?
I have a question on parking. Are we still discussing parking?
Yes, we are.
John, it says that the city council hereby authorized public works director to designate additional temporary loading zones. Do we know where we're designating the loading zones?
I think that's a general ability. I don't know that we necessarily have any in mind, but we just want to have the ability to do so, and he would be the designated agent of that action.
Does that mean he can just designate one without our approval, or?
I would say that it needs to, right now, the way it reads, yes, he would be able to do it without approval. I think we need to have it still come through council for decision. Any other thoughts on that, council?
Well, I think that we'd go off his recommendation, but there might be a process where we all want to decide.
And I think
I agree.
because right now we have a public works director that's been in this community for a long time.
We don't know who that person is next.
Right. Whoever comes in behind John, we don't know if it's internally or from one of his friends that he met down in Florida on one of his trips down there or something. But yeah, we need to leave it. I would say it needed to come through council for review and decision.
Were there any other changes unrelated that you guys would like to make to the document before you take action on it?
Talking about that same issue, it seems to me that, it could just be an expedited telephone poll decision. I would think if John needs to designate a temporary loading zone, he might be in a big hurry. So maybe coordinating with the police chief and the mayor might be good enough. But we can look at that in detail.
Do some feedback on somebody. Okay. So do we want to, well, this is just first reading. So first ordinance reading. So we'll have time after we talk about this and approve this in our regular meeting. And then we'll have plenty of time to bring that back up and get the flyers out and start talking about that. And I'm talking back about the westbound Wall Street venue. Anything else on the parking? All right, thanks, John. And last but not least, we've got about 15 minutes, and I'm going to give you time to take a bio break. So Andy sent out a schedule of interview times and how we were going to conduct the remaining of our candidates for our new police chief position. And John, you did send that out to council members or Andy?
Mayor, not yet. We need to nail down the dates. So that's one of the main things we need to do here. I thought you might want to just give an update on the process, and then we just need to confirm the dates of interviews with city council.
So KRW sent back several names. I believe it was 16 or 17 names. Andy, myself, and Chief Malenka all vetted these after they handed it to us. We kind of picked the choices that we would like to see. And then KRW narrowed it down to the top 5 they thought with 2 alternates. After Chief and Andy and myself had a really lengthy discussion amongst ourselves, we selected our top 5 and 2 alternates, which were not the exact as KRW. And that's all okay. We just felt there was a couple of things like travel time, we require being 45 minutes from the city. We had applications at over an hour and 20 minutes from the city. And we just they were ones that the KRW picked out, but we felt that was too far away especially in the community that you have to be a working chief and potentially backup, in a pretty quick situation. So that's gone well. Like I said, right now KRW is doing the background checks on the 7 candidates that we picked to make sure that they don't have any baggage hanging behind them, that if we hire them, that we don't get on them. So KRW is doing that right now. Our suggested interview and process time is the weekend of the 12th, Friday the 12th. Is that correct, Andy? February 10th?
Right. I did hear back from some council members that either day, I think the ones I heard from said either that Friday or Saturday, the 12th or 13th of February would work. I think the preference might be Friday if all the council members can make interviews during the day on Friday, February 12th. That's the day we would probably go with. Does that work for all of the council members?
That's for me.
Works for me.
Works for me.
Well, what I would suggest is that we go with Friday, February 12th for the interviews. There'll be the interviews with council. There'll be the interviews with a panel of professionals, police chiefs. And then we're also, Mayor, did you want to speak about the town hall?
Yeah, what we think we would like to do, unfortunately, we've got this COVID thing. We can't meet in person. We would really like to do a public engagement process where members of our community can come in and just chat with our candidates and just talk and kind of get the feel. I'm all into the body language thing, and unfortunately, we can't do that. However, we are asking the candidates to come in personally for their interviews. We'll be able to do our spacing properly and our distancing, and it'll be very safe and a good way to do it. So the way that we want to get something out to the community, the members of the community, is what we thought we would do is do a public town hall, and the candidates would have 5 to 7 minutes to basically throw their spiel. What do they know about Idaho Springs? What do they do to really research our community? Just see what their little 5 to 7 minutes, what they could tell us about how they felt the process was, and what they do to be one of the top candidates to be picked for this position. And we would do that on what do we say? Is that Friday night?
Well, if we're gonna do the interviews on Friday, I would suggest we do that on Thursday night. So maybe like 6 o'clock, we do the town hall that evening.
Okay.
And then we'd have the information from that town hall available when council wants to discuss the results of the interviews in the town hall, what the professional panel felt, the police chiefs felt, and the council would have the benefit of all of that information at the end of the day on Friday.
Any thoughts or comments, council?
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
The other piece of the town hall is we don't think it would be a good idea in talking with KRW to make it a free-for-all questions from the public. However, we felt that we could come up with a short list of questions with some input from community members that we would ask each candidate. So as the mayor mentioned, each candidate would have an opening statement. We try to make sure they hit certain points in that opening statement so you can compare them a little more easily, and then go right into the same questions that would be asked of each candidate, see how they answer each question. So it's a good time for them to be able to think on their feet, see how they can relate to the community. Granted, it's virtual, but anybody in the community who wants to watch and be a part of that, see who the next police chief might be, can tune in. So we try to publicize it very well, and we've gotten pretty good at virtual meetings. So I think, and town halls. So I think we can make this work.
Council, all good with this, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday layout and the way that we're trying to move this along?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Very
I
good.
will- I will confirm the schedule with KRW tomorrow, and then get the schedule out to council, so you'll have plenty of time to plan for it. But if you could just block out Thursday evening, assuming you'd like to watch the town hall, and then pretty much it would be all day Friday, and we'd bring in lunch. So we'd like to have everyone here. If you're not comfortable being here, John Kane has assured me we can find a way. If there's any council member that wouldn't be comfortable being here at City Hall, we can do that for that person remotely. We can find a way to make that happen. But ideally, as the mayor mentioned, we'd like to have all 7 council members here spaced out, and you just be with the candidate and maybe 1 or 2 staff people from KRW or the city. So if that sounds doable, I think that's the way we'd like to go. So you have some personal contact.
Sounds good to me. I don't know what you mean by the council members being spaced out, but I think some of us are, but that's another subject.
You're on a roll tonight,
Including myself.
Man, I like Art showing up early to meetings.
Yeah.
Gotta have a little humor in this, what's going on in this world. But anyway, it all sounds good to be on a serious note.
Andy, what time is that again on Friday?
It'd be pretty much all day. We'd probably, the tentative schedule that I talked with KRW about is maybe starting around 9:30 or 10 with a briefing by KRW on the process, and then go right into the interviews. Probably, we have five, assuming all five finalists come in to interview, we'd have maybe 2 in the morning, later in the morning, and then 3 in the afternoon, and then have a chance to debrief and wrap up. So pretty much all
Okay.
day.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Looks like we've got a good direction going on. Exciting stuff. Not exciting that the Chief Malank is leaving, but you know, he has served the time that he promised the city that he would serve, and he's sticking around to help us get the new chief in place, and we appreciate that from you, Chief. It would have been easy for you to say, I'm giving my 2 weeks notice and I'll see y'all later. All right. Okay, everybody, let's take 5 before our regular meeting, and see you back on here at 7.
Okay.
Chuck, we're moving right along with the train.
Yeah, you know, I have to tell you, I was impressed with the train report. I'm not familiar with the gentleman it came from, but I thought, you know, the photos and the explanation were just excellent.
He worked on the train back in whenever they did that window restoration project. I was forget if that was in the 90s or the 80s, but whatever that was, he's
yeah.
engaging.
Yeah, I want to say like 85 or something. It's been a long time.
He's great. And then they told us that anybody who would like to go see it is more than welcome. So I'm kind of hoping we could get a little group together to go check it out. And
you know, you could count me on that. I would definitely be in for that.
Okay, I'll get a couple of dates put together, and then we can figure something out.
and I'm sorry, his name escapes me, but I've been on many panels with the gentleman that runs the Loop Railroad up there.
Mark?
And
Gribble?
yeah, and what a great guy to be doing that. You can tell he loves what he does, and he's a real leader. So I felt very good about giving the coach to that group up there.
He is really cares about Idaho Springs. He has donated the services of Santa Claus every Christmas for the last couple of years. Just because he's a great guy. So he's had him come down and see the kids. So
so Mark Gable you're talking about?
Yes.
It's interesting. The State Historical Society did a nationwide search twice, and they came up with somebody didn't work out after a few years. They did a lot of damage up there. And the entire time, Mark Grable was living right there. And,
wow.
Right in Georgetown. The odds are unbelievably slim, but there it was.
It is, and he's a real leader, and I'm just thrilled that it went up there to them. It looks we're still waiting on Jim. Jim, are you there? All right. All right. 7:01, January 25th, 2021. This is our regular scheduled city council meeting. Welcome everybody in the audience and council. Can I have roll call, please?
Michael Hillman.
Here.
Scott Pennell.
Here.
Doug Harmon.
Here.
Bob Boland.
Here.
John Curtis.
Here.
Art Cacavelli.
Here.
Jim Clark.
Here.
All right, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag.
United States of America, to the republic which
Stands.
One nation,
indivisible,
indivisible.
liberty, and justice for all. Please be seated. All right, council, we have it in front of us. Do I have a motion? I would move that we approve the agenda for January 25th, 2021 meeting. Do I have a second, please?
I second.
Motion is second. Discussion. I had a question about an ordinance of repealing and reenacting Article 2. This is the River Outfitters, and it's ordinance number 4, Series 2021. It's in our packet. It's not. Yeah, I'm sorry. Unless it's referenced somewhere here, I just didn't see it on the agenda. It could be under. No, we don't have a
requests for action on that. We can add that though.
Yeah, that was my question because I would move to put it on if this is something we want to address today.
You know, I'm going to just ask Diane, can this wait until our next regular meeting?
Sure. Sure.
Yes?
Yes,
Let's just table that ordinance for, I noticed that too, that it wasn't on the,
Okay. All right.
my mistake.
okay, so we'll just table that. All right, anything else from council? All right, all in favor for the agenda, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? We'll move down to, does anybody feel that they have a conflict of interest tonight?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh,
Oh, sorry,
go
Bob. Go ahead, sir.
Bob?
Okay, yes, under city administrator item I need to step out for a minute. Fairly minor item, I think.
I don't think so. You won't have to, you don't have to go anywhere on that, Bob.
Well, I'll just be real quiet.
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
I don't believe
Why don't you just recuse your vote on it?
Yeah, abstain or?
Recuse your vote on it. Just recuse yourself from the vote.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
You don't have to leave.
Yeah.
Okay, if that's
Oh.
it.
No,
We'll move to the-
Mayor,
Yes, Jim?
I'm sorry. I do on the bills, Allied's got one on there for a small amount, 80 some dollars. I'm sorry, 84.96.
Okay, thank you, Jim. We'll make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Okay, there's our conflicts of interest. With none other on that, do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes, please?
I would move to approve the minutes from January 11th, 2021.
And do I have a second?
I second.
Second.
All right. Any questions or items that we found that were not correct in a minute? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will move down to the approval of the bills. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the bills to January 25th, 2021.
Do I have a second?
Well, except for Allied Towing, right? Art?
Except for Allied Towing.
Minus Allied Towing, yes.
Yeah, or just clarify, except for Allied Towing.
Move to approve the bills of January 25th, 2021, except for Allied Towing.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All right, discussion on the bills. Does anybody have any questions that need to be answered?
You know our guys.
I have a question on the displaced housing. It looks like we spent the CARE money for that, right? We had our donation plus the CARE money.
So what that was, and I'd have, what page is that on, Scott? There it is, business grant. Are you looking at the one on page 3?
Page 8 and 9. Several payments for displaced lodging. That was for the Hanson Lodge, I believe.
That is correct. Andy, help us out with this a little bit. This is the bill for it. So 33,780, right, Andy? And then we will be taking off 9,600 and some change. And about $5,000 was split between Idaho Springs and the county out of our CARES funding. So if you took that 9,600 and that 5,000, we'll have a balance there that will owe. Is that correct, Andy?
I didn't quite follow that, Mayor. I'm sorry.
I thought, Mayor, didn't we have that in that CARES? Didn't we talk about that? That we're right in line, actually under budget by almost $2,000 or $3,000. Is that? I thought there was a $36,000 deal in there. Or am I wrong? Maybe it was 30 or something.
Well, so CARES money between the city and the county is going to pay $5,000. So everything else, do you know the total bill that we had, Andy, for everything?
That's pretty close to it. Most of the housing came in on the visa bill there. I think there might be one or two other nights that will be on the next bill. So that's pretty close, the total cost.
And we're done with those payments, right? No more.
Well, now we've paid for it on a credit card. When we get the reimbursements from the county and the CARES money and apply the fire authority contribution, we're still going to have about $20,000 to $23,000 left over.
Andy, it looked like it was about maybe $159 a week per individual. Was it something to that effect?
Yes. Yep.
And is this an ongoing expense, I guess? Is this still happening or is this done?
We're done.
Done.
We told them and told them that the city would guarantee them 30 days. We held up to our end on that, and we've kind of handed it off, the remainder of handling with these folks, to the county, because the Human Service Department is familiar with most of these people already. And from what we understand, about 90% of them, maybe even a little bit more, have found permanent housing either somewhere in Colorado, another state, or whatever. So the county did a really good job in helping these folks get out, get a new place, or find somewhere to move to. But no, this is it. There will be no other charges on that card for this event.
There's also an additional amount under the administrative checking account for lodging for $7,485.99.
Where was that, Diane?
In administrative checking on page
Five.
5.
Page 5.
Uh-huh. We used this account because Andy's credit card had been hacked.
Oh, okay. So then we'll have to add that. Is that $74.85.99?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll have to add that into the 36,000.
Correct.
Thank you for that, Diane. That makes more sense now. Okay. Any other questions on the bills? All right, can I have a roll call, please?
Michael Hellman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Doug Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right, I need a motion for a licensing bill, please. I'll pay you, Jim. I'll make the motion to accept the bill for Allied Towing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second on the table. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Michael Hellman, Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Doug Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
All right, we will move. Diane, do I have any unscheduled public comment for tonight?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who do we have?
John Kane has the list.
Okay, John.
I think Bruce signed up first and he's on the call.
All right. Bruce Boynton, I'll give you 3 minutes to make your public comment, please.
I'd like to thank you for the 3 minutes, first of all. And second of all, this is about the parking on 17th Avenue, adjacent to our building here, and the new no parking sign that says no parking here at a corner, and my loading zone is in that space. And I'm able to use my loading zone is basically a driveway. And in the state of Colorado, driveways, whether public or private, you're not allowed to park within 5 feet of them. But all we're asking is for it to not be no parking. I'd like it to be a public loading zone, but right in front of my doors there, you will see my delivery driver's car a lot, whoever's on call. parking because when it's busy, I mean, I can't have my guy running 4 blocks to his car just to deliver a pizza to someone here in town. And that's our loading zone. We use it often. And I've always moved our vehicle for Cisco or UPS and everyone. And that's for every business down Minor Street. A lot of the trucks park right here because they know that even if they can't find a spot, we'll move our cars so they can get in. We don't try to hinder anyone else's business. I think we've been pretty fair with that. And I'm just looking for the city to recognize that, you know, not only is a public loading zone, but in front of those doors there, that is the building of 1640. That's one of its accesses, and we have a little bit of a right to use it. It's been there for 149 years. The sidewalk is cut down to show that it is a driveway. The city has recognized that before. And I'm asking if that can be, if we could work something out here instead of just keep butting heads, because we're not getting anywhere like that.
Right. Bruce, is that the end of your comments?
Yeah, except for if you want to look on the state law there, that would be 42-4-1204 in the state code that says that no one should park with, you know, can't park within 5 feet of either direction of public or private driveway. And if that was the case, between our 3 accesses on 17th, that would take up the whole road, and I don't want to do that. All I want is for people to, for my delivery driver to get in and out and not have a hard time from anyone, plus all the other delivery drivers that deliver here to the city.
All right, thank you, Bruce. And I don't know if you were on earlier, but we are going to be talking about our parking throughout the city in another coming up work session, and we will bring this topic up at that time. So thank you for coming on, Bruce, and making your comments this evening. Okay, John, do we have anybody else?
Yes, sir. Alicia, do you want to go next?
Alicia, you got 3 minutes. Are you there?
Yes, this is pertaining to the rezoning of the trailer park on Minor. I really don't think that it should pass. The gentleman does not take care of the residents as they sit now. There is things being done on the property that should not be done without a licensed contractor. There's been plenty of things that have been put in that have not been more or less approved by the city.
Okay.
That's pretty much. Do what?
Is that the end of your comment?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much for bringing that to council.
Absolutely.
John, do we have somebody else?
There's one more. I'm not sure if she's here. Mrs. O'Malley. I'm not sure if Tracy, if that's you.
Is there Mrs. O'Malley in the queue?
I am Tracy, but I am not Mrs. O'Malley, but I would like to speak as well with Alicia in regards to 2800 Minor.
You'll have to do that on your own time, not on our time. So,
okay.
Unless you were signed up for public comment, you can make comment.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right. John, is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will move on to resolutions. Do I have a motion? First of all, I need to ask this question. Diane, what's the staff report under resolutions?
Mr. Davenport?
Okay.
Yes.
Mike, you
Good
have
evening.
something for us?
Yes. as part of the planning by the United States Forest Service for how it deals with disasters such as floods or fires, they have developed this agreement that they have been working with the states, with the federal agency responsible for historic preservation, local governments, and the tribes. And the reason for this is that in addition to in the event of any activity done by the Forest Service or any federal agency, they're required to take particular steps related to historic or archaeological sites. This is referred to as 106 review, which is the section number in the federal codes that sets out these requirements regarding historic preservation steps that must be taken by federal agencies or when federal money is involved with the project. So the agreement, as noted in the brief staff report, has three purposes. One is to streamline the procedures that the Forest Service will follow in the event of a disaster or emergency such as a flood or fire. Number two, as to how it will address the 106 review requirements that it also has to meet in situations where it doesn't have easy access to a site. For example, if you have sites that are so unsafe that someone cannot walk into a site and look at a historic site, how they might otherwise deal with that. And number three was to improve the communications that the Forest Service has with other entities, such as the state, the tribes, and local governments, in the event should a disaster occur and there is 106 review involved. And as I mentioned, this has gone through several iterations of revising the document. The document has also been reviewed by the city's attorney, and staff is recommending approval of the agreement.
Right. Anybody have any questions for Mike Davenport? All right. Do I have a motion?
I would move to approve. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
I'll move to approve resolution number 1, series 2021, a resolution approving city as a concurring party to the intergovernmental agreement between the USDA Forest Service, the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, and the Colorado State Historic Preservation Office concerning certain undertakings in response to emergencies and disaster conditions.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Discussion.
I do think this smooths things out, and it's a very appropriate resolution.
All right. Thank you for that, Councilman Harmon. Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Michael Hellman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Jack Harmon,
Yeah.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Right. And then we'll move down. We've got a couple of ordinance first readings. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve ordinance for 2 series 2021, an ordinance amending section 11 and 2-31 of the Idaho Springs Municipal Code concerning the commencement of elected officials' terms of office.
And do I have a second?
A second.
Scott, we'll give it to you, Scott, for now. Discussion. Roll call.
Michael Hellman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Jack Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Okay, we don't have any ordinance second readings. Remember, we're gonna table ordinance number 3. We'll move down to Andy, City Administrator's report.
Mayor and council, you have my report with one request for action, please.
All right. Anybody have any questions for Andy? Do I have a motion?
I'd move to approve donating the retired archway poles from the city to the Argo Mill.
And do I have a second?
Second.
A second.
I think Jim got second. Any more discussion?
Trash we have to get rid of.
Go ahead.
I don't mean to be mean, but I'm glad they're taking it because it's probably trash he does not have to deal with.
When we did Colorado Boulevard, we took those things down, and I don't know, I'm going to blame it on Bob. I believe Bob said, we ought to save those things. There might be some value. And they've been sitting over at the Argo for what, almost 3 years now?
And rustier.
All right.
So the library or the visitor center doesn't want them either?
John, I don't want staff time going around trying to give them away. Argo's willing to take them. I say, let's give them to them.
Okay.
All right. Any more discussion? Roll call.
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Abstain.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Okay. Diane, we're going to move down to you. You have any?
Could I clarify that you were going to do first reading ordinance 3, the Wall Street designation?
No, we're gonna table that ordinance number 3 until we have further talk about until we get the surveys in from the residents and everything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, you have my staff report with no request for action.
Okay. Any questions for Diane? And I just want to throw out there that even though that our front office door is locked and they're doing everything by call in or knocking on the door, our staff is staying very busy at City Hall. They're getting the job done. So us to be able to protect our staff from the outside public coming in and keep us healthy. I know that Thursday we did do, and you can tell us how it went Thursday for court. Did it go pretty good, Diane?
Yeah, it actually went pretty good. There were approximately 20 some people on the docket, so that always helps.
Okay.
But I think that the judge and Kelsey have it down.
All
And
right.
the prosecutor.
That's good to hear. That's good. To
How
hear.
many, if I might ask, how many are normally on the docket?
Anywhere between 30 and 45.
Really? Oh my God. Okay. I had no idea.
It can vary, but that's about an average.
All right. Any other questions for Diane? All right, Chief, you're up. PD?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to refer you to my report, and I have no request for action.
All right. Anybody have any questions for the chief? All right. We will move down to John Bordoni, Public Works, Water and Wastewater. John?
Mayor and Council, you have a staff report with no request for action.
Okay. Thank you, John. Any questions for John? All right. I think everybody already knows I did call around early last week, and we did not get our energy impact grant, $1 million grant from BOLA this time. We knew going into it that the money with oil and gas industry was way down. The amount of applications and needs were way up. So it came down that there just wasn't a lot of money to fund this go around. Clay Brown from BOLA called Andy, and then Andy reached out to me saying that, can y'all get this project done with $300,000? And of course, I was expecting a shortfall of the money, but not to $700,000. And so I reached out, tried to reach out. I know Scott probably was working, and I believe I talked to everybody, and just a voice that, for us to try to scurry around and find $750,000 to make this project happen, I was not for doing that. We'll have another opportunity in August to go back after another grant. In the meantime, Andy and John will be turning over every rock to look for additional funding sources for us to move that project forward. But right now, that project of our public works facility is on hold. I know that last week also that we talked about, we did the first reading on rate increases that we put into our code. I believe it was for a 5-year stretch. Andy and I had a discussion because I know there was some concerns about that. So what we're going to do is we are going to have a work session again and bring the documents and some of what we did for, it might have been 3 years ago, and why we had to implement these increases to keep up with our debt service. The other thing that we would like to do is go ahead with the council approval is I think we should go ahead and just make sure that we're on the right track. That the increases that we're doing is keeping up with the debt service, and or are we maybe taking more than we should, and could we skip around or restructure our increases in our policy? So we're going to pull that together. Hopefully, what do you think, Andy? Next week or the following week before the meeting?
I was thinking probably the following week, Mayor, if that works.
So we'll do a work session, like I said, 2 weeks from now before our regular meeting, and we'll look through those documents and we'll look through, and then we'll decide if it's time, if council approves us going ahead and doing another study. I'm not going to call it a study, but just a reevaluation to make sure our water rates are where they should be. Now, also with that, we were slated to do 9% on the water and 8% on the sewer side this time. But I felt, and I think all of council felt, that with what's going on and people already hurting on finances, that we were going to do whatever we could to cut that increase out this go around. With that, for us to say 0 increase this year would put us in a really bad position. Unfortunately, in the past administration, there was a period of time that there was no increases. And then what did it do? It got dumped on when I came in, that the first increase we did, I believe was like 18%, just to try to catch up a little bit. So I think it's real important that everybody knows the reasons why and the numbers, because I believe after the second reading and once those bills start hitting folks' mailboxes, they're gonna start calling and asking questions. So I want everybody to be well informed and armed with the right answers to the questions that you might be seeing. I think that's all I got. Andy, do you have anything else, or John Kane?
Don't believe I do, Mayor.
All right. Okay, Counselor, you got anything for closing?
Nothing.
All right. Yeah. Somebody's gonna say something, Bob?
No, I just said nothing here.
Okay. All right. Very good. Great meeting. It's 7:30. Meeting adjourned, and we'll see you next Monday night.
Not everybody.
Have a good one.
Bye, everyone. Have a good evening. Be safe.